Hello and welcome to Raising Anchor, your podcast and source for all things Rhode Island FC. I'm your host, Matt Entrican, coming to you on this Thursday, October 30th. Rhode Island FC's season comes to a completion, as well as their unbeaten season, seeing it kind of fall apart here, all when it matters at the end, after a loss against New Mexico United. We're going to talk about that result and see if it stifles the momentum for the Amber and Blue as they get ready for playoff soccer down the stretch. Away to Charleston, a place we're familiar with, a place, Jason, we have seen before when it matters the most. Are they going to run this back in this first must-win game of the season? I can't wait to talk to you so much and so much more. Mr. Jason Carey, how are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great. It's playoffs time, you know. Are we ready to go full Jim Mora and just yell playoffs?
Are we talking about playoffs? We're going to talk about playoffs. There's a lot to talk about, both what happened last week for Decision Day, what's going to be happening this weekend for Sunday as we hit here into playoffs against the Charleston Battery. Super excited. There was no news up until just 5 minutes ago, and now there is breaking news.
Isn't that how it always works?
That's how breaking news works. It's got to be broken somewhere. Fans in the Discord have found an article from Yahoo Sports of all places, Jason, of all the credible places. It's not The Athletic, it's not ESPN, it's not even a local newspaper from the town that this announcement is coming from. It is coming from the one and only Yahoo Sports.
Legendary sports coverage.
Sporting Jacks, my friend, will be playing in the USL Championship in 2026 per Yahoo Sports. How do we feel about this? We talked about Brooklyn last week, that was not going to happen. It now happens. I had questions if Sporting could come online. It looks like it's now here, and we will have two new teams, both on the East Coast, in the USL Championship next season.
I mean, it's great. We can make memes next year about them, like playing Jacks and tie it into Sporting somehow. It'll be great for, meme Mondays on the USL Championship subreddit.
So we already knew that Lexington didn't deserve to be on the West Coast. We have also then thought, okay, Birmingham will have to go west as well. But there will be, if there's no other team that leaves the championship at the end of the season, one more team must go west, my son. Who do you think goes? Because you don't break Indy and Lou up. That's a rivalry. You don't break up the lip back or whatever they call it. I forget the name of their derby. So if you don't break that up, there's only one team that comes to my mind, and I am happy with them to leave. But what do you got over there?
I mean, there was talk of Birmingham. I don't know.
Birmingham will go. That's like whether it's been announced or not.
But we have to add another one. This isn't making any sense anymore. We're so lopsided on one side. Maybe we just need to. I would love in a perfect world to play each other twice, but that's just not going to happen. Maybe we need. Remember, we were coming up with weird,
I remember
subsections.
There was one team. Just take a guess, and we'll move on. You're making this too difficult.
I honestly don't remember.
Detroit City FC.
Oh yeah, that's really
Detroit
far west.
will go west because they have there's no relationship, there's no rivalry. They're the heel of the league.
Everyone.
Let them go experience some Western medicine next season, as I'd like to think. So we'll see what happens. Obviously, if a team collapses, who knows what will happen next season. But as of right now, Brooklyn FC and Sporting Jacks both set to come and join us next season. So anyways, let's get into this. Let's talk about what really matters here, and that is Rhode Island FC. And let's start with the New Mexico United recap. Obviously, they played a game last week. Was not, I think, the way they wanted to end their season. When you talk about all things considered, they lose 2-1. Weirdly, we had talked about going down to Albuquerque ourselves to watch that game, and we knew back before results happened that this was going to be a very competitive. This was going to be a strong showing for both these teams. We thought that maybe something would come down to the wire in terms of points on the table, positioning, which for Rhode Island, it was very much in play, potentially getting dropped down to 8th place. We knew that this wasn't going to be a pushover match. This wasn't getting like Miami FC or Las Vegas Lights as a gift to complete your season, much like we got last year in that goals galore game. So, we look at this, we say, okay, we're going to be traveling to Isotope. We're going to be traveling to the lab. And immediately it's dawned on us, multiple injuries coming out of both the North Carolina match, lingering issues that have been going on with the players' health. Despite all of that, despite the activities that happened, I feel like Rhode Island FC, they went down swinging. Like they didn't just, get kicked in the teeth and say, okay, we're going to go home now. they fought, right? Like, can this team keep their heads high despite the result against New Mexico United?
Yeah, I think, like you said, it wasn't exactly where we wanted it to go, but I think you have to give full credit to Kano here, right? He made the necessary swaps, and the team really was going for it second half. They almost were throwing the kitchen sink. I mean, it didn't work out, obviously. There's a lot of times we've seen this team kind of, I don't want to say give up, but maybe run out of ideas, right? They try the same thing over, it doesn't work out. But it really felt like, a team that believes, if you will. And they didn't win, but they didn't go down without a fight. Most of their offensive stats really came through that second half. The first half very much dominated by New Mexico. And we talked about this too, about how they seem to be kind of a first half team. And, you could tell that there was maybe some rotation that maybe influenced the result on the night. But I don't know if ultimately I'd say our momentum's fully gone from this.
I agree. Now, to get to the technicals, and by the way, in the chat, happy birthday, Nate. Congratulations on the 50th. That is always a milestone. Speaking of 50th, there's some impressive caps that Rhode Island FC players now have that are up in the 50s and beyond. So that is a big shout out. It's always great to hit that number. One day I'll hit that if I'm lucky. So we'll see what happens from there. But back to this, though, going through, giving Kano his flowers, giving the team their efforts. Let's talk technicals for a second. The Rhode Island FC ends their 2025 regular season on a 10, 8, and 12 record, so 38 points. We'll compare that to the 2024 campaign in just a little bit. But Jason, this game breaks a 6-game unbeaten streak, right? This loss snaps that. Both of these teams going into this match with unbeaten streaks. The only two teams flying high, the only team flying higher, I should say, was Lou City. We know what they've been up to on that side. Does a momentum snap like this when you get to that many games? Is this just like, okay, this was inevitable, but form goes beyond momentum, right? Like this is not a sign. Do we need to take signs that something is wrong with this Rhode Island FC team?
No, we saw this last year. Remember when we went out to, it was
Orange County,
and I think was it Pittsburgh before that?
Yes, those were the two losses of that run.
And we were starting to get nervous. We came back and we just turned it right back on. So I think that there can definitely be like slips or trip ups, if you will. But as long as they can kind of just, move past that, remember what they did the week before, and kind of keep moving on, I don't think there'll be much of a problem here.
So we'll see. We'll unpack some of the details here in a minute. But Jason, I have two gripes from this game. One, how does the league not completely make fun of New Mexico? And I don't mean just the USL League. I mean the fans of the league. How do they not completely make fun of New Mexico's broadcast package, having the giant foul ball net wire running through the entirety of their top pan? I remember we got blasted last season with the pole at Bryant for just one game, and they said absolutely not. Yet there is a wire that looks like a line, a diagonal line that cuts the field. How do they not get roasted for that? So that's my first one. And number two, how many fans of RIFC did you witness at the Guild not follow the podcast as they were completely confused by the 7-minute Daniel Bruce send-off?
I mean, honestly, even I was confused. I'm all for the send-off. I love the idea, especially when they already kind of knew their fate. Like, we can't go higher than third. We can't go less. They're obviously still going to go for it. But they felt comfortable burning a sub to let, I don't want to say club legend. That's up to them to decide.
He's a club legend for them. That's self.
But yeah, for them, club legend, to let him actually get a final send-off, especially when players get injured. There are times where you don't realize that was the last time you're going to see them. So bring him on, sub him off, standing ovation, cool. But they then proceeded to have some guy come on the field.
The owner.
It was too loud in the bar, so we couldn't actually hear the volume. I don't know what was even going on, but they were just, oh, what does I imagine, like, what does New Mexico mean to you? And kind of going through that whole spiel. Do that at halftime. Do that at the end of the game. That's perfectly fine. Don't take up 7 minutes of a game to like have a celebration. Like that was ridiculous.
I remember people looking left and right like, what is going on? Didn't this match just start? And obviously Rhode Island probably knew what was going on. It's a weird position. You get the players warmed up, you get them ready, and then there's just this rest. There's this moment again that happens.
That's how they got us.
That is the tactic. It wasn't the elevation. It was the confusion of timing. But nevertheless, it definitely created a little bit of an oddity in the beginning of that game. New Mexico burned not just a sub, but they also burned a substitution window in that. So like, again, we talked about it on last week's show, like, oh, what kind of, I mean, not disrespect in the idea of commemorating one of their marquee players from the beginning of the formation of that team, but more of just like we know what we're doing to honor this guy, and we aren't worried because from a position standpoint on the table, we're fine. And, even if you guys figure out how to win and we're like, oh man, if only we had that last sub, we could have turned things around. It was like okay, I would have liked to see us win, and then getting the loss in addition to that throwaway, it was like, okay. Again, I think the team played as fantastic as they needed to, but a bit interesting there. I do want to ask though, before we move on, who's the player, if they get a 7-year career span with Rhode Island FC, who do you think's the first player that we have as a legendary retiree, and then we take 10 minutes at Centerville Bank Stadium?
I mean, for Coke Vegas when we sub him up?
I think it could be. I don't see why not. I mean, keepers after 34.
I mean, it depends.
I mean,
like how well he
some are
takes
built
care of
Hamid.
himself, right?
Yeah.
Buffon played till he's like almost 40. I feel like Claudio Bravo played pretty late. There's definitely
Didn't
a bunch of
Guzan
them
retire at like 41 just recently with Atlanta?
Probably. Yeah.
Well, I mean, once you go bald, it's really hard. You become timeless. You become ageless to a certain degree. It's really difficult to see. But anyways, I think it could be Koke. It's that, or it's got to be a younger player that is just. It's got to be Kevin Vang.
Kevin Vang
has to be the 7-year honoree retiree. But let's talk about how Kano set this roster up going into Vegas. Some changes, Jason. Some confusion, some head scratchers. I was definitely. When you see the lineup come out before you see like how it could work out, you're just trying to move players in your mind's eye. It became a bit of an exercise, but how did Kano construct this team?
Yeah, so like you said, 3 changes here since the North Carolina FC game here. Koke Vegas and net, still the same there, but a little change in the back line. Ugo Bacharach, Ame Mabika, and Hamidi Diop. We had Frank Nodarce, Clay Holstead, Mark Ibarra, and Aldair Sanchez make up the midfield there. And that front 3 composed of Jojea Quizera, Chico, and Noah Fuson. Did you notice how on the broadcast they put Mark Ibarra at striker? Love it.
Love to see it. I mean, I think if we played like a give me a nickel every time the Vista broadcast team gets the graphic wrong, I think we'd actually be billionaires by now. So it is what it is. Even when I do homework and like I look online when I watch either the full game or I just watch the preview, replay, highlight thing, every single time I know like you cannot trust this graphic unless the team that is put out has been played for like 10 weeks in a row,
so that they know exactly where they're going to be. As soon as you make a change, people are like, I don't know what Kano's going to do here.
Yeah, but and too the lack of research. Like, oh yeah, let's put a center back. In fact, with Charleston, Martinez, a right wing back or right back primarily, was placed as the central striker next to Cal Jennings, and it was like, okay, well, we know that that's not true. So like, yeah, you take it with a grain of salt. But I want to talk through this roster for a second here, the starting 11 and the corresponding 18 that traveled. Bacharach drops back from his pivot pairing with Holstead. Weren't sure at the time, like when we saw this, like, okay, is Kano bringing Nadarce, who can play center back? Is he dropping him back? Instead, it's Bacharach dropping down. Mabika gets his first start since mid-September against Indy, where he got red carded out. I didn't realize how long it had been since he had actually seen starting minutes. And then Diop, who I think is basically, he has locked down his role here in that left center back. But then you have Sanchez and Quizera on the pitch at the same time. And we've seen some coordination between them where it's Sanchez on the left as well as Quizera. But instead, Quizera slots in for the missing Amos Shapiro-Thompson / Joe Brito role. We know Chico comes in for the hamstrung, and I shouldn't say it that way, but JJ Williams. Again, though, no Maxi Rodriguez in the start. What is it that Rodriguez is not offering that he can't play in that forward right wing position?
I don't know. It's interesting because we saw a month or so ago, maybe even 2 months at this point, like he kind of made part of that front 3 his position. We thought, oh, have we finally found it? Because at that point too, he was comfortable dropping back to play as an extra midfielder too. And I think that versatility and Connell loves versatility at that point. We thought, all right, this is his spot. He's like a kind of cam / forward, like a, second striker, if you will. And then he got that concussion and he's gotten only a few minutes since then. So I'm not really sure what's the deal here. But I don't know. It's, we thought going into this match, you said like, this is not really the time to do any tinkering and changing. Maybe we have to do a little bit because of injuries, but here we find ourselves moving things around, and not a terrible performance, but not the result we want.
Speaking of, Stoneman and Atkinson also completely left off the roster. Not sure if they traveled or not. We see Matthew Ndongo get not only a return to the 18, but also getting his first sizable minutes coming on in the 77th minute. Any thoughts on his first appearance? I can give you some of the numbers: 5 touches, 2 passes, both backwards to Danny Rivera, and a shot from inside the box that wasn't on target.
Yeah, I don't know if I would call this like a meaningful performance from him at this point. It's good to see him get some more minutes out there, but until we can get closer to like a full half, and to get in, with 5 touches, like what do you kind of expect from him?
2 golazos from the wonder Cameroonian.
1 touch, 1 goal.
I will say though, hey, in all fairness to his progress, because this is how you track it's measured in inches right now, not
Absolutely.
miles. He did more with his time on the pitch than Chico, according to all the stat columns. So he had just about, except for touches, he did more on the night than Chico. So that should tell you everything you need to know about the progress from Matthew Ndongo. The other big missing piece here, Yao, relegated to a bench position, been nursing some hamstring fatigue. This is probably most likely precautionary, needing him for the bigger game this weekend against Charleston. Went back and looked at the numbers. It's crazy to think. I was like, man, when was the last time we didn't see Krifa Yao on the pitch? He's been such a stalwart in that back line. Jason, he's only missed 5 games this season in the regular championship, which that feels too high. I feel like he's been there the entire time. Tell me I'm crazy.
Yeah, I would not say that high either. I think, was it the Portland Hearts of Pine game? He got red carded maybe?
But that's not even the I'm talking
that's not even the regular season.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of think like that would be the last time I tell you he missed a game. Outside of that, I'm like, no, he's always there. Like the, death and taxes. It's Koke and Yao.
It's death, taxes. It's Krifa Yao and Clay Holstead getting a yellow. That is the line. But interestingly enough, though, when I went in to think like, well, Yao may have just lost his running for the most minutes and the most games played. Do you know who has the most minutes played this season? It shouldn't come as a surprise.
Probably Clay, right? Because he's always there. You're not always sure where he's going to be, but he's there.
Correct. Clay Holstead is the only player this season to have played in all 30 regular championship games and has the most minutes at 2,300 minutes played. Next closest is Noah Fuson at 2,180. Then Krifa Yao with 25 matches at 2,029. And then this is the weird number. Koke Vegas is the next one. Again, large chunk of time where he was missing. He has the 4th most minutes, and appearances wise down to 22, but because the keeper never gets rotated out, he then comes in 4th. Maxi Rodriguez is the 5th most minutes played at 1,787 across 28 matches. So basically the 2 concussion ones that he missed there. It's crazy to say that, especially considering, by the way, Clay Holstead, the only player that's been a part of every single win in the regular season this year. And I think it's flattering to him because he had some milestones this week as well, correct?
Yeah, I was actually really surprised that we've played this many games. Clay Holstead made his 75th career appearance for Rhode Island FC across all comps.
So that's got to be the U.S. Open Cup, the Jägermeister. That has to even include like friendlies at that point. Like how you get 30 to 34. No, you get 34 games minimum.
We also had the playoffs and the finals. So that puts you
68. Yeah. So you got to be including U.S. Open Cup then.
You count Open Cup.
U.S. Open Cup and playoffs. We've now had 7. That means that, and I'm assuming Clay Holstead has also appeared in every single match of every single game. That means that we've got a total of like 75 games played as Rhode Island FC.
Yeah, he's probably never missed a game. Like if he's probably like didn't start and he was on the bench,
Sure.
but still came in.
Yeah, he was going through the Amos Shapiro-Thompson identity crisis of which one were we having on the right wing this year. I get it. But then also Chico Quizera, they get some flowers too.
Yeah, both of them made their 50th career starts for Rhode Island across all competitions. So his numbers are getting up there.
We are so happy when we think about 14 goals for Chico across 50 starts. Fantastic time. Gonna have some questions about him in the offseason. We want to see him be a more active part of this offense. We know we have him for one more year. He's gonna have to figure out some stuff. But let's continue on then and talk about that against our. We had goals galore for our season last year against Miami. This year we definitely have shots galore as Rhode Island FC outshot New Mexico United 15-11. Interestingly, when I went back and looked, it said 17. So I don't know if they took 2 away. They're like, no, those don't count. But for whatever it is, 15-11. Rhode Island FC now matches its 3rd highest shot total of the season and forced New Mexico United keeper Chris Shakes into a season-high 5 saves on the night. Weirdly enough, Rhode Island FC, again, this doesn't feel right, but they average normally only just 10.8 shots across the championship this season. So way higher on the index of shots, yet we still come away with this without a win. Our XG above 1 after everything was compiled, but not something to go right home and be bragging about. Listen, Jason, it was great to see Williams get in the second half, but I want to talk about those shots overall. Specifically, I want to talk about Noah Fuson. I have noticed over these last 2 games that he seems at first I said a bit braver, a little bit more confident to start ripping shots, sometimes from far outside the 18, sometimes taking it upon his shoulders to try harder than I think necessary to create something. Like, he felt galvanized after this recent string of performances to kind of be the guy, especially when Williams isn't around to do it. But then I watched this game on the replay, and I noticed several instances where there were parallel channel runs that were happening, to, like a distribution out to Sanchez. Williams was coming in, Chico was coming in, and Fuson didn't want to go for the pass. He wanted to go for the shot. I don't know what the conversation looks like between Kano and the company. I know that obviously he's been saying play more fearless, play more brave. Is Fuson been given the permission to just let it rip and then see where that secondary spill can get collected? Because otherwise it kind of feels, when there are better attacking lanes moving in, it almost feels like he's got blinders on. I don't want to call him selfish, because you want a striker to take that upon themselves, but missing some opportunities here. Where does that land in your eyes? What's something we can unpack there?
I think that this team kind of struggles with balance, if you will. I think that you say, sure, there's a passing option. If you pass it, then is that person going to take a shot, or are they going to pass it too? And then you're just are we piling on passes again? Where we just have 500
You're just Arsenal and you're trying to walk it in?
Yeah. And so at that point, you want to look for the pass if it's maybe a better opportunity. But at the same time, this team needs to take more shots. And they did this time, and it just kind of didn't work out for them. But there have been plenty of times where we'll have 9 shots and then 2 shots on target, and we lose 1-0. And we're like, maybe this team just would have shot the ball instead of passing around so much. So it's I think it's just that balance they're trying to find. So I wouldn't grill them too hard just yet. Maybe next week when we talk about another match, we'll see where we go from there.
It was Noah Fuson's shot that became his infamous spider goal against Charleston, away at Charleston. So I'm not against him taking shots. It's just one of those things where it feels like he's got the whole responsibility of the offense right now on his back when Williams is not available as an outlet. I mean, we see now without AST driving at least some pressure off the right wing. I'm not sure Quizera was as effective as he would have liked to be, but again, much better. It's a night and day difference on how good he can be and how effective he can be on that left side of the formation. So really interesting to see. But that's I want to see the activity, but now we're gonna talk about this. The clinicalness has to come in. There has to be some crispiness there in that attack going into this playoff game. That's the offensive side of things. Let's talk about the defense, because Jason, I don't know about you, but did we see the back line showing some cracks here on the night? It was kind of surprising. I don't know if we call this a lack of defensive discipline. I know we have some conversation here, but New Mexico, they had one tactic on the night, and it continued to be a problem for us. It was lobbing balls over the top. I was catching flat-footed back line, lack of momentum, and then just trying to blow past them. we talked again a second ago, like, was this because of how much change happened on the back line? No Stoneman, no Yao, and how important he was. Mabika gets one of his first, and I think this was his first opportunity as the center back. I think maybe he had one other one when Yao was on that quick hiatus when Mabika first came in. I think he played a center role, but you've got Jope, you've got Bacharach dropping back into the center back line, and Mabika. This can't be just because of different faces in different places, right? There has to be more to what happened here on this night.
I think it's a little bit of both. And I also just think you have to, sometimes you have to give credit to the other team, and they find your weakness and they kind of exploit it. You'd mentioned in the preview that, Akali was going to be a problem for RIFC and that they kind of had to isolate him. But, if you put up the graphic, I think that, we see here New Mexico really took advantage of our back three in this freeze frame, which leads to the first goal in the night. It's interesting because you look at this and you would say this is a team caught in transition. And to a certain extent, you wouldn't be wrong, but the ball started with Shakes.
Yeah, they played it out the back.
So
from Shakes to Maples out to either Gloucester or Harris, and then they one-touch lobbed it.
Yeah, so they created this transition because we were pressed a little too high. Like you see 3 RFC players here stepping in to kind of trap Gloucester, including O'Darce, before he sends the ball long. The problem here is, I assume, is probably some communication issues in the sense of when you do change that back line, right? You have Bacharach, who is playing as a holding midfielder just before, and then Mabika, like we said, hasn't started the last 4 or 5 games. So we put them back together. Mabika stepping up high to put pressure on Harris coming in into New Mexico's half, while Bacharach is kind of in a zone block there, a little bit further ahead, and the team's just way too high up there. And then they find a sprinting Noel where Jope tries to collapse on him, opening of the channel. We see Noel saw a pass to Akele, who's kind of burned Sanchez. Sanchez was definitely, he is part of the midfield, but as a kind of wing back there, definitely he gets back there.
That's the punishing part about being a wing back in a formation like this. Like, you're expected to be in the attack, and then you can't get burned on the defense.
Yeah. That's why I don't want to I don't want to say this is an alarm or anything. I think that they had a tactic and it worked very well. I think, like I said, this is probably a bit of a miscommunication here where, Bacharach, like I said, being kind of more of a midfielder recently. Mabika hasn't been here that much in the sense of also playing the center back too, right? There's different positioning depending on who's in one of those 3 back positions, right? Yao is almost always the one furthest back there to kind of shut a lot of this down. So, I think that what this tells us is, the presence that Yao has kind of offered this back line at this point. He's not as quick, but he's kind of like our final boss, if you will, right? You get past everyone and he's just there to kind of take care of it. And then if not, 9 out of 10 times Koke is going to take care of it after that. Maybe we're a little too adventurous. Jope and Bacharach kind of had 3 of the finest, the highest final third entries. And those are our center backs, right?
That is a crazy stat, by the way. The fact that that 3, it was, and the other one, by the way, with Clay Holston. And I know, like, when you're talking about building up momentum, often final third entries can start as the ball's being brought up the pitch, but 2 of our center backs creating the highest number of final third entries into the attack. That is, like, it's good. It's creative. It definitely makes a team probably have to think a little bit differently on how they zone and how they man mark. But, like, that told me we were just committing numbers too high for it. And we saw that all night, right? Because we saw all of the goals get scored in that first half. Again, like, we thought that this would be a bunker and counter into the second half, not letting New Mexico start things off and then causing us to chase, which is exactly what happened to New Mexico's favor. I think you're right. But then I would also argue, and stealing some of your knowledge here, I think that the damaging part here is that we just talked about that goal and transition leading to it, but then we see the exact same thing happen 10-ish 20-ish minutes later for the penalty, where again it's a sequence of give and go, and then it's a lob over the top. Gloucester's back on the racetrack. Bacharach is with him, but then he tries to do a cutback, puts the brakes, and Bacharach and it was the right penalty. It was a call. Like, you knew Bacharach knew it was a penalty. Cuts his legs out from underneath him. All again stems from a ball over the top. Should we be concerned going into the playoffs now in these do or dies that our defenders are stepping up too high into the press to try to engage that? Do you at this point need to kind of, I don't want to say bunker, but do you need to give more space and make sure the ball remains in front of you at times? Because if that was the playoffs right now, we're out. The season's over. The playoffs are done. How do you do that now? Do you tell Kano to tinker to contain that pressure, or do you not do any adjustments whatsoever?
I'd say something elevation and injuries. Jokes aside, I wouldn't read too much into it, because at the same time, you look back at our recent defensive record, we haven't let in too many goals. So I think this was just a kind of a blip here, if you will. If we can get back to our, let's say, desired starting, close enough as you can to the starting level, right? Like AST, that's, unfortunately, I don't think that's going to happen.
We'll talk about that.
But if you can kind of put everything back to the team that's been, went on a run of form in the last, 5-6 games unbeaten before this, I think you can just kind of roll it back and everything's fine. At that point, the players know the positions that they're most comfortable in. Kano, I think, has kind of found his system, if you will, there. Just kind of maybe got to swap out one or two for an injury, but kind of keep them more of a like for like. And I think that they're still going to give it a go, right? I think that, we have to believe, if you will.
It's the second time you've done that tonight. I don't disagree. Moving on, I feel like we've been a little impartial, a little unfair to Mr. Bacharach tonight. So let's give him his props where they are rightfully deserved. Scoring his first official goal of the USL Championship this season after
Allegedly.
netting. I mean, technically, he netted the first time against Las Vegas in a goal that will never count. Aime Mabika was a part of that. We thought originally Mabika was the one that scored it. And Mabika ran off. Everyone celebrated. Bacharach, I think he realized it, but nobody else did. So he was kind of doing his own thing. But Mabika thought that was completely his.
Chico was also doing the you want the shirt celebration. I think he was probably getting tugged around in the box. But yeah, Mabika collected his first career assist there. If you kind of go back and look at it, it's funny. It looks like he basically heads it off of Ugo. So, but yeah, it in real time, it happened so fast. We thought, oh, that's Mabika's, but yeah, he knocked it off his shoulder there.
A nice little redirection. That's probably what made it so that it wasn't easily, defendable.
Yeah. It's funny because that was a set piece goal, right? I mean, they finally did a chicken sandwich run, but I don't think it was tied to this. So outside of home games where it hasn't happened, how many set piece goals do you think we've actually scored?
And by the way, I did not get my free chicken sandwich today. I just couldn't get out to Attleboro for, if it had been every Chick-fil-A, I'm sure I could have come across one, but it was not right time. That needs to be,
had to work. Yeah.
Yeah. That needs to be more of a, see, this is why you give them out the day after on a Sunday. Oh no, they're closed Sundays. So you can't, never mind. Scratch all of that. But I could not get my free Chick-fil-A sandwich today. Despite the fact that I have many magnets on my car. But no, to answer your question, I think we've only scored one set piece goal this season. Now, I couldn't go do the search fast enough, but I believe, Jason, in my heart of hearts that I think we scored a set piece goal against Westchester. Not a corner, but I think we got a set piece goal against Westchester when we put up the 4 against them in Jägermeister Cup play. So not in the regular season. And if it wasn't that, maybe it was in Open Cup against Hearts of Pine. One of them was a Frank Nadarse. I think the other one might have been. It was one of those
Chico hat trick, and someone scored the other.
Could have been, but yeah, it definitely is. It's less than the number of fingers I have on either one of my hands, and it's certainly not them combined. So it has been a problem all year. I think one of the glaring things that Kano and his technical staff are going to have to address in the offseason is how do we have the tallest team in the championship and we scored 1 to possibly 2 set piece goals. And set pieces are going to be a major problem this weekend against Charleston. So we're going to talk about that. But getting back to the thing you said about Chico, Jason, it's starting to become a thing. He's doing what I'm now calling the great Chicolio, because that's the only thing I know that from. I know that from Beavis and Butthead. And now 2 games in a row, well, not 2 in a row, but against 2 teams in the last 3 matches, when a goal has been scored, he comes up and he puts his shirt over his head. We were told in the Discord, and I don't think we shared this on that podcast after the Tampa match, that he went up to Forrest Lasso and said, "Hey, you've been tugging on my uniform all game. Do you want it after the game? I can sign it for you and I can give it to you." No way knowing if that's a true, substantiated, confirmed claim, but that is the rumor that's been going around. So I like Chico trash talking. I like Chico getting in players' heads. I would like it more if goals were also coming from Chico as he did it, but I'm not going to complain at the same time. So if the great Chicolio has been born, let it happen. I'm fine with it.
Looking forward to see it this weekend.
He needs goals for his golazos. So, hey, listen, I want to talk really quickly about the 2024 versus 2025 comparison, because we talked about it a couple weeks ago. I got burned on the internet about, I mistakenly I fat fingered that we had 11 wins and it was comparable to the 2024 season.
It happens.
People corrected me. So I'm going to give some stats and bear with, because this is all competitions, because it's really difficult to look at it when you talk total point spread, total goals, if you don't include the Jägermeister Cup. And you can argue like, oh, okay, but we played 2 USL 1 teams. Is that truly a good showing? I don't care.
I mean, Miami last year was basically USL 1 team. So.
Yeah, exactly.
So
from that regard, in 2024, we ended in 5th place with 51 points on a 12, 15, and 7 record. We had a 56 goals for and a 41 goals against for a plus 15 goal differential. Jason, here in 2025, we finished in 7th place on 48 points with a 13, 9, and 12 record on a 41 and 33 record, or a positive 8 goal differential. If you remove the goals alone from the Jägermeister Cup, it's a 29 and 29 goal differential. So we're 0. There's nothing changed there. I want to ask you, from that alone, does it, like, 5th place was literally 1 win away. If we had won this game against New Mexico on Friday night, we would have been in the exact same position from a wins column and a points column, but I don't think we would have gotten higher than 6th place. We weren't going to catch the goals galore of what happened last season. How much of a gap exists between these 2 records to say, obviously, for the layman's term of it, the 2024 campaign was a better campaign. That is undeniable by just the numbers.
I don't think
alone.
you could argue that.
But how far of a drop off, now that we've talked about this, now that we've experienced the entirety of the season, how far of a drop off between this 2024 season and now this current 2025 season have we really seen?
It's hard to say without getting into the playoffs, because at the end of the day, if you, like, for American soccer, it's all about the playoffs, right? If you don't win the supporter shield, cool, you made 7th. Cool. You're like, what would a 5th done for us? Right? You're still in the playoffs.
In a mostly all away seed, yeah.
Yeah, like mostly all away. So at that point, it really has come down to, can this team make another run? I'd say they don't have to get to the final per se to still make it a somewhat comparable, successful season. But if they get knocked out in the first round, I think that you definitely have to look at it and say, this was, I don't want to say a bad season, but comparatively a much larger drop off.
Obviously, it's a when things may come kind of situation. But had we won the Jägermeister Cup, even if we get knocked out first round, would this have been a more successful season then?
I think in terms of like hardware, you could say absolutely. We won a trophy in our 2nd year. Sure, it's not the main trophy. It's a newer trophy, but it's still a trophy. So in that regard, I mean, I guess some people would count the Eastern Conference Finals as a trophy too.
It's a trophy, Jason. I walk past it every time I go to the locker room.
Yeah. It's more of a cool, it's like an admission ticket to the final, if you will, right? Like, it's nice, but no one's going to remember, who was the Eastern Conference finalist in 2017.
It's the trophy that we never talk about, but we do have. It's the USL Cup runner-up plate. That's my favorite trophy. We have one of those as well, and nobody ever want to take a picture with it, Jason. I don't know why.
Don't know why. Maybe they don't want to remember that game.
All right, so then let's talk about this overall. You can have your own opinions on the season as it is. That's up to you to decide. I still believe, and I am of the opinion that we made it in the playoffs for 2 consecutive seasons in a row, and that is a accomplishment in and of itself. But let's talk about what happens here now in this belief campaign. Jason, do you believe, my friend? Are you a believer?
Do I believe in games after regular season? Absolutely.
So I want to talk about this at length. We have bracket predictions, which we'll put up in just a second. But looking at these numbers and looking at where Rhode Island FC is, I've heard some conversation about, how much more scrappier does this team need to be here in year 2 for their playoff run. Remember, last year it was always we're playing with house money at this point. No one thought we could do this big, great thing, and we went almost all the way to the end with the eye on the prize. Last year, though, this was a team that failed to lose. It drew a lot. It won some. You couldn't really break down this team. This year, the draw and the loss columns, they have swung violently in the opposite directions of each other. And when I started doing the breakdown, because what you have to think about now is how competitive is Rhode Island FC against these specific teams, not just the entirety of their conference or the entirety of the league. How good were these teams in head-to-head competition? And Jason, this doesn't paint a great picture here of what happened for Rhode Island FC in the regular season. The win rate against Eastern Conference teams for Rhode Island that are now in the playoffs, just 21%. The win rate against teams in the Western Conference, 0%.
Man, we hate the West.
We didn't beat a single playoff team out of the West. We also didn't play against 3 of them, too. So we talk about the schedule ease and the luck of the draw. We didn't play Tulsa, first place in the West.
Didn't play Cola Spigs.
We didn't play Cola Spigs, last place in the West.
And then Orange County Soccer Club, yeah.
The only other one is Lexington, which for all intent were in it up until the very last day, and then they weren't. Strangely, we have been, despite the fact that we don't have this great record in either conference against these playoff teams, strangely, we have now been set up in, I think, what is the best possible scenario. It's almost kind of like the USL story makers they've been giving Rhode Island FC a lifeline. When you think about the teams in the bracket that we have, right? So now we take on Charleston as the 2nd seed, us as the 7th seed. In our bracket is also then the 4th and 5th seeds of Loudoun and North Carolina, right? In that same spirit now, what happens is when you look at the points there, we beat North Carolina, and we drew North Carolina. We beat Charleston. We lost against Charleston. We drew Loudoun, and we lost against Charleston. Of all of the points we earned this season in that 48-point spread, 11 of those points did come from these teams. Our win rate is significantly better. We are 2-2-2 in the bracket that we now have to marshal through to the Eastern Conference Final. If we had been on the other side, so if Detroit had jumped us with a win against Tampa Bay, we would have been on the other side of that bracket where we had a 1-1-6 record.
Wow. That's a huge difference. And really makes you think, like, ultimately we got 7th, but we really needed 7th to give ourselves a chance. I mean, at a certain point you have to just believe that, all right, this is playoffs, this is different. You just do what you can, but history can play into it to a certain extent as well there too.
Agreed. So let's talk about our brackets, because if you haven't done this, go to USL Championship, enter in for a chance to bracket up and see if you win. I don't know what the prize is, but I remember last year we were the cup set that continued to destroy.
Like a Big Mac or something, right?
Maybe. I just remember we ruined, like they said that when Rhode Island FC beat Louisville, it destroyed like 83% of the brackets out there in a single go. And then I think there was an upset too on the Western Conference side of things that just destroyed the rest of them outright. Like a team that had no business.
I mean, even Colo Spigs, I think if I remember correctly, weren't one of the like top seeds. They were higher than us, but they just kind of hit form at the right time.
Agreed. Agreed. So let's walk us through first. What are your bracket predictions here on how you see this shaking out?
Okay. So
Start with the Eastern Conference.
yeah, so we've got here at the top, Louisville, Detroit. Louisville's gonna get handled. That's just kind of no-brainer. Hartford and Pittsburgh. I don't want Hartford to win, but I feel like with Bob Lilly out, and I think that the season that Hartford's had, I feel like they could sneak a win there. At the same time, I would not be surprised. I also don't think either of those teams is going to get past Louisville.
Pittsburgh is one of 3 teams that the Athletic could not beat this season. So
but then that's also one of those things where if you keep like playing the same, like eventually you get past them, right? We couldn't beat them for the longest time either, and we finally did it, and we did it away also.
But we haven't actually beaten them in the championship.
That doesn't we still beat them. North Carolina and Loudoun. I think that could go either way, but I think Loudoun might kind of get past North Carolina. North Carolina is so weird to me. They're just so mid at everything. I know they did beat them last week, which is funny. So now they're going to play each other again. So that's another one of those where I feel like it's just the result's going to swap. It's going to be 1-0 to the Loudoun. Then Charleston and RIFC. Obviously, gotta go with the boys in amber and blue and think that we can run it back. Then we've got our semifinals there. Louisville's going to take care of Hartford or whoever they see, make it to the conference championship there. Maybe maybe just crazy. Maybe we get our first win against Loudoun there
in club history, by the way.
Yeah, or if not, we can obviously easily. I think we can handle North Carolina FC. That one I'd be more confident about.
You don't get to wishy-wash your bracket. You stick with what you said. Don't say maybe North Carolina. You picked Loudoun. Stick with your guns. And hey, listen, I hope if it's not us, I hope Ryan Martin's Loudoun United make it all the way to the finals, because all the rumors say he doesn't have a job at the end of the season. Like, he's already been told he doesn't have a job. So I hope he wins the whole thing. On the Western side, to speed things up, you've got Tulsa and Phoenix. You think Phoenix is besting El Paso?
Phoenix has had better form in the last 5 games. They've actually their defense is kind of shored up, weirdly enough. They haven't been giving up a ton of goals. And I think that El Paso's still a bit sloppy jalopy, and they're kind of all over the place.
You've got United besting San Antonio, Orange County besting Sacramento. That's the cup set in your side of the bracket. How do you see Orange County beating the number 2 team who put the boots to us once and then we couldn't get through in Jägermeister play?
I mean, if we can beat a second seed, why can't they? I just, Sacramento is weird. I think their results have been inconsistent, and Orange County kind of got their form in gear at the right time. I mean, it could happen.
And then conference final in the West, you've got Tulsa versus New Mexico with the New Mexico win. How does Tulsa make it all the way there for their first time? And why do you think it's New Mexico who takes it, even though they'll have to go away to another baseball park to play soccer in?
I think New Mexico kind of caught form at the right time, and they actually beat us. So I think their form's just going to kind of continue, and I think it'll carry them far in the playoffs. So hey, why not see them there again?
Okay.
And then lose to Elevation.
So you've got Rhode Island FC in the final. We're basically repeating the end of the year regular season game. We're going back to Isotope. We're going back to the lab to lose in a cold place in Kirky, or are we getting the W? We're going to figure out Elevation for the first time ever.
Oh, we're going to lose to Elevation. And we didn't actually lose to them. It's the Elevation.
So this is a bracket I don't like. Your imagination is right, but I hate it. I'm going to go with mine. And so really quickly, it's Louisville and Pittsburgh in the semifinals out of their bracket. I've got North Carolina against us, Rhode Island FC defeating Charleston, with Rhode Island FC meeting Louisville again at Lynn Family, but this time in the Eastern Conference final. And in the West, this is where my imagination runs wild, because this is a what if, Jason.
This would be
great. This is a what if, okay? So everyone that's listening and everyone that's watching, bear with me. I've got the Colo Spigs beating the number 1 seed to play against. I do think Rising will beat El Paso. I just don't think they're ready for playoff soccer. I've got United and Sacramento then facing off. I think that's going to be one of the most important games to watch.
The Elevation derby right there.
And then you've
Spigs
got
versus
Colo Spigs versus New Mexico United. Again, elevation won't phase Colo
Elevation Derby.
Spigs. Yeah, it's in there. But here's the best part: Colo Spigs versus Rhode Island FC in the final. This time, though, they come to Centerville Bank Stadium, where we get the
They're
W.
one of 2 teams that we could host against.
Yeah. Which, by the way, that's the only real way we see a playoff game this season is if it's in the USL Cup final against Colo Spigs, or somehow Detroit City survives through Lou and the winner of Hartford and Pittsburgh to face us in the Eastern Conference final, where we, of course, always win. But, okay, all jokes aside, and while as much as I want this more than anything, again, look at that bracket. North Carolina, we've beaten and we drew. Loudoun, we drew and we lost. Charleston, we beat and we lost. Like, this is the way to at least the Eastern Conference final.
This is the way.
I believe with my whole heart right now that we can catch Charleston unprepared. There's going to be psychological warfare here, and then we can get through the winner of the 3rd and 6th seed to make it to the next round. I do think that this is possible. I don't know what happens at Eastern Conference final and beyond, but I think we're good for a win or two here in this playoff run. If that happens, I think that still is a successful season, because whether we make it to the USL Cup final and lose, or we make it to the Eastern Conference finals or semifinals and lose it, like, we still didn't win the thing. Like, I think if you get 1 win, maybe even 2 under your belt, I think it's a successful playoff run to a certain degree as well. Obviously, it's not the win we want, but anyways, we got to move on. Speaking of Charleston and how we're going to beat the pants off of this team, let's talk about their head-to-head and what we have in store this week.
Yeah, so when we look back at the 4 matches between them, RIFC have 1 win and Charleston have 1 win, and there's been 2 draws. It kind of feels like it's been forever since the Rhode Island FC had their season opener away to Charleston, that 2-0 loss. But that's because it was the first game of the season.
So long ago.
I think we kind of wrote that off as early defensive slip-ups, getting back into the swing of things. Like, we were still defrosting at that point.
And Charleston already had a game under their belt too, so they were already slightly more lubricated than us in the joints, you know?
Yeah, so at that point, one of the strongest teams in the East, and kind of I like I said, didn't look too much into it. And then they came and saw us, and we kind of smash and grab to a certain extent. Late goal, 1-0 there.
Is it a smash and grab if it's at your own stadium, though? I thought that was a term we reserved for away matches.
That's because that's the mentality we have at home. We joked about New Mexico United kind of bookending the season, and in some ways, if RFC don't get the result here in the weekend, this could be very much a kind of bookend to our season as well, where we're finishing things down in South Carolina.
Yeah, I mean, Charleston, like you said, who in any other year, Jason, if it wasn't for Lou City's ridiculously stupid league smashing record, they would have ran off with everything. They'd be Supporter Shield winners. They'd be the favorites, the darlings to win in the playoffs, but somehow finishing second on a 19-5-6 record that saw them with a +30 goal differential. Jason, they outscored everyone in this league, including Lou City, and ended up in second place in the East.
That is
62 goals, Jason. They had 62 goals, with Cal Jennings and MD Myers specifically combining for 32 of them in the regular championship.
So those 2 players have more goals than our entire team of 29 goals.
Yes.
And their goal difference +30 is more than our entire.
Yes. They scored more goals together, the 2 of them, than our entire Rhode Island FC offense combined.
Gotta believe.
In fact, wait, going back up to the notes. No, when you look at USL Jägermeister, we did score more. But if you look strictly at the regular season, yeah, it's crazy. And this is also a team, when we look at considering the last season, this was the team that had Nick Marcanick's 28-goal Golden Boot season. And Ben Pearman was like, you know what? That was too many goals for just one player. So let's just split the wealth. Let's go get ourselves the Jedi Padawan. Let's go get ourselves some Cal Jennings. Myers decides he wants to step up and be a contender himself. And then we've got the ever deadly set piece specialist and midfield expertise of Malloy, Rodriguez, and now Husu Landry that are just, they're causing problems across this league, yet they're still in second. And they locked up second place like 2 months ago. They couldn't, they were trying to catch Louisville. It was off and on. Then Louisville started to get even further ahead. But there's like a 15-point gap that had locked in by the beginning week of September,
which is insane.
Yeah. So it is foolish, Jason. Where I'm going with all this is that we've been talking about Lou and how they're going to be this difficult team. It starts right now with Charleston. Charleston is not a laughingstock. They are not a pushover. And when I ask you, what do you think of the Charleston battery? What words come to your mind?
Deadly offense. I mean, I think this is very going to be like we're starting the postseason with the final exam, right? I think if this team can get past here, I think they will have the belief to go further and like make a run. We're definitely not make it easy for ourselves. I mean, it's not like the other side would have been any better though.
Right. But I mean, if Indy, to your point, was kind of a runway to like, it's like, getting on the freeway and having to get to 70 within like 15 feet of starting.
We need to be hitting 80 miles an hour, like right out the gates.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Tim writes in, do we get another block party? Tim, I think we only get a block party if we at least win one playoff game. I don't know how it works after that, but I feel like that's what it is. Chuck also writes in, he's got Phoenix and Rhode Island in the final, but Chuck's being selfish because he's in Arizona, so he just doesn't want to have to continue to travel to follow this team everywhere. So I'm on to you, Chuck.
I'll go wherever it is.
If we make it to the final, of course we're going.
Yeah, wherever it is.
I'll even argue if we make it past Charleston, I'll go to Loudoun. I'll go to North Carolina. I haven't seen either one of those yet.
I mean, yeah, if
North Carolina really wants more fans at that stadium from the away group than the home group, that's how you do it.
Yeah, just beat Loudoun, and then you'll have all of the RIFC fans after we beat Charleston come down and visit you.
Exactly. So let's get into this match preview now that we've kind of unpacked where Charleston has been since we last saw them. Who are the ref assignments on the side?
Yeah, head ref here is going to be Elton Garcia. Our assistant referees are Chris Schifrons, Matt Trotter. The fourth official being Thomas Snyder.
Yeah, and if Garcia is a familiar name and you're in the back of your mind, he has ref some very important games for Rhode Island, most specifically the playoff game against Lou City at Lynn Family Stadium last year. He also oversaw the Lou City match earlier this season, again at Lynn Family Stadium.
And we're throwing a Snyder cut there too. This is going to be a banger.
Your jokes are on point tonight. When you look at Garcia, by the way, he is the referee of referees in the championship. He has the most games overseen. I can use words tonight. Overseen here this year in 2025 by a healthy number too. So when you start looking at his stats, then they kind of inflate against averages because he has more games under him. So you're going to naturally see more fouls, more cards, more everything. But what's interesting is even with the additional games, Jason, while he does have high foul calling, he has the lowest card issues average amongst refs that have over, let's call it 15 matches this season. So I don't know if that means he's going to let the team play and like maybe kind of get in their way a bit, but not necessarily go to the pocket as often. It's hard to say. I don't remember seeing much wrong in the reffing of those Lou City matches, but it's playoff time now. And if there's one thing I do remember from last year's game against Charleston,
it was a battle,
but they started kind of getting a little glass cannony, a little fragile when contact started to get a little bit chippier. And I remember Kano screaming into the on-field mics. You really heard the passion in some of the shenanigans going on the Charleston side. I want to talk really quickly about the injury report because this is an important part of what will happen here for this Rhode Island FC side. As of today, and I was able to confirm this with someone at practice, right now, we only have the 3 players who have been in perpetuity of injury listed as potentially injured and or questionable. So Rio Hope Gunn, Joe Brito, both out with end of season injuries. Will Meyer remains questionable, but I was told on authority that every single player will be available for selection going into this Charleston match. So that tells me that Amos's concussion protocols have cleared. That tells me that whatever nagging injuries to JJ Williams and Karifa Yao, whatever those precautions are, those have cleared. Dwayne Atkinson, Grant Stoneman, all available for selection. That doesn't mean that they're going to play, and we'll talk about rosters here in a second, but that is the best possible outcome you could have for this Rhode Island team. We've talked about how injury laden they have been all season, Jason, and this may be the healthiest we can possibly be, and it's the right time, right place. So with that being said, if Kano, and by the way, Charleston, of course, no injuries reported, so they're just looking great. It's fantastic. Good for them.
They're not a deep team either, right? They don't have tons of
They
great
have
players.
so many players, Jason. I know you're being sarcastic. They have so many good players on that. They have Rubio Rubin on that team. Like what is going on? Anyways, so now that we say this, going through the experiment of, if Kano, because we were concerned, right? We didn't know if Kano was going to have a healthy roster to select from for his starting 11. But now that we know who it is that is healthy and who isn't, what is Kano setting up for this starting 11 here going into this playoff match?
Yeah, so Koke Vegas in net. I think a bit of a return here to the back line with Grant Stoneman, Karifa Yao, and Hamani Diop. With a midfield four of Frank Nodarse, Clay Holstead, Ugo Bacharach, and Aldair Sanchez, with a front three of AST, JJ Williams, and Noah Fuson. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Get back to the lineup that really kind of put us in good form there.
Yeah, we saw what this lineup could do against the likes of Tampa Bay. I think the argument here is Quizera versus Sanchez. Obviously, Quizera has a little bit more of a goal sniffing ability, but I think what's going to happen and what's needed is Sanchez is going to be needed on the wings to apply pressure in the transition. And I think you're going to want that extra layer of looking back and comfortability on the defensive side. Kano has said that he sees these players as interchangeable. I think Sanchez, with his chance creation, is going to be more important. And then Quizera off the bench, if you're starting to lose, if the game is getting past you and the minutes are running out, Quizera seems like a better option to throw the kitchen sink in. Do you agree or disagree?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think here, Darcy and Sanchez, that gives you the extra defensive solidity because Charleston's going to hit us with the wings. Their fullbacks are going to push high. But then we also know that, Sanchez is no slouch in regards to speed either. So he can get up there. So and Frank Nodarse got that kind of flair to him. Both of them could potentially get in behind if their fullbacks are pushing too high and cause some problems for them.
And then I think the only other one is with the entirety of this roster healthy, we've talked about this at length, sacrifices must be made to have what we think are Chico, Quizera, Rodriguez, Harivo, Ibarra, and Mabika on the bench. That doesn't leave room for what we've left off as Atkinson at this point. Is there a player that we would think Dwayne needs to be in replacement of? Is there too many midfielders? Is there a player that needs to be dropped so that Atkinson can make this playoff trip?
Oh, that's tough to say. I mean, coach has got a lot of decisions there. I don't know. We talked about it a few times already. Maxey hasn't really seen a lot of minutes. Does he leave Maxey behind? But also at the same time,
that would be such a statement to leave your marquee signing.
So why would you do that? I mean, Zach, if he's healthy, will always be there.
I mean, the argument minus Mabika, which you need the center back rotation for just defensive purposes. All of these guys have played in USL Championship playoffs. There's a veteran seat of the locker room at this moment. There's not just in the generalness of USL, but specifically with Rhode Island FC. Sure, Maxey done it in other places with Detroit, but this team is now they need each other more than ever. You would almost think Atkinson, who's never seen the playoffs, while this doesn't help him for a 2026 problem later on, it's is this the player you bring along?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think that if this is the lineup we field, I mean, I think that's the bench you take along with it.
I think if you want, I think you have to leave a midfielder out at that point to bring an additional winger or attacker. Atkinson himself is classified as a midfielder, so I don't know, but it's going to be tough. We'll see what happens on. Kano's got some tough decisions on the day. In terms of Charleston and their setup, so this is interesting. This is their most recent starting 11. They had 8 changes from their last game, where basically Ben Pierman was let the young ones play, let the lads play, because he needed to keep his team fresh. Cal Jennings will be at the front, paired most likely with MD Myers, kind of in that secondary striker role. Arturo Rodriguez out on the wing with Kelly on the opposite side. Usu Landry and Aaron Malloy will be in that midfield double pivot, the most dangerous double pivot in all of USL, in my opinion. Langston Blackstock out on the left side with Akpono on and Leland Archer in the center back pairing, and Martinez out on the right. Zamudio, want to ask you, we didn't think highly of him as a keeper earlier in the season. He wasn't tested against us in the opening game, but he didn't do enough for us to get the win against Charleston. Would you say he's been an upgrade for them in the keeper position this year?
I mean, I think he's maybe got some potential there. You also look at in regards to like they didn't get as many points as Lou City, right? And Damian Loss this year has been lights out. So has Zamudio been one of their weaker points? I mean, maybe in the sense that, they're clearly their midfield and their front line lights out for them. They are an unstoppable force. But maybe some of those wins or draws some of those losses or draws that they would want to convert into wins to really chase after Lou. Do you have to look at not only just Zamudio, but some of the defenders there? Maybe there's some weak points back there that can be exploited.
Well, then let's find this out, because to me, I look at this game and we look at last year's season and we ask ourselves, where do the goals come from in this match? At the Charleston game, JJ Williams finally kind of tapered off, right? He'd been on this consecutive goal scoring streak. He was about to hit 3 hat tricks in a row. He gets to the Charleston game and just kind of locked out, phased out, with the goals coming from Noah Fuson having like the most important goal of his career at that point. We know Williams will now be back on this team in a starting role, I anticipate. And we know how important his contribution, the significance of it was last season. Even if he's not 100%, though, which RFC attackers, which RFC players are going to have to rise to the occasion if they do what they did to him last year? Because again, remember, this back line is mostly the same back line. They'll have a game plan for JJ Williams. Where do the goals have to come from then if it's not Williams?
I mean, I think if it's not Williams there, then you kind of just said it, right? Noah had a really important goal last year against them, and I think that he's kind of starting to catch form. I know we talked earlier about maybe, is he taking too many shots? I don't know. I'm not going to grill him for that at this point. I think, though, with JJ being there, if JJ can at least take some of the direction of the defenders away from the other players, that gives opportunities for someone like Noah to kind of slot one in. And then if we do see Amos Shapiro-Thompson, maybe he doesn't get a goal there. I mean, maybe he can kind of get that secondary pass, that contribution. Maybe we can, maybe we see a Clay banger. Like, when was the last time we've had one of those?
He ripped one in the New Mexico game. It just was off target, but he, on the volley too, he ripped it from mid. I wanted that goal to go in so bad. I wanted it to go in so bad.
It's been a minute. We could really use a Clay banger here to get us through a playoff game.
If Clay gets a banger, we go get the RIFC tattoos no matter what. Who cares if we win the Open Cup final?
Changing the
rules.
We're
making changes to the bets. Pray we don't change it further. All right, what's the next storyline?
Battle in midfield. We just talked about best double pivot maybe in the league. And we know where goals from Battery come from. But how does this midfield stack up? Like, who is the right pairing to duel and win those second balls? So, I mean, I think we already have it there, but is that the right option, or do you need to make changes to that?
So last year it was Ibarra and Holstead, and Ibarra has always played the utility role, right? Always been the silent defensive part that gives Holstead the permission at times to move up. What's interesting, if we do stick with the theory that we get the Bacharach Holstead pairing again, is unlike, and I think this is where, and I know Charleston fans would disagree, Usu is a destroyer of worlds. He is one of the biggest, toughest, meanest defensive midfielders I have ever seen in my life. He's also not afraid to go up. Malloy, on the other hand, you could say he's a defensive midfielder, but like, he's more of like a cat, more graceful, more technical, very good with the ball at his feet. They work well together for that pairing. But where I see Bacharach and Holstead, if they've got it in them, if they've hit this level of, compatibility now, I look at it more of a, not like the double pivot of, okay, you go up because you've got the momentum, I'm gonna hold down the fort. They are very similar in the sense of both are comfortable ranging up, both are solid defensively to at least move the ball out to the wings.
Tough physical dudes.
So with that pulley lever, I think this could be, if they've had enough time, I think this could be the pairing. I think if there was any other double pivot that could compete with Usu and Malloy, I think it might be Bacharak and Holstead. There's just a natural they play well off of each other, and I know it's a small sample size, but if we get that in the midfield again, I think it's going to be a great showing in terms of technical prowess. What I don't know is if it's because it's going to be Bacharak versus Husu. I don't know how that physical beat up's going to be. They're both about the same height, but Landry's got a little bit more weight to him. So like I'll be really interested to see how Hugo's able to contain him. So that's the real story. That's the duel to watch is Bacharak versus Landry if Bacharak is allowed into the CDM. So I'm going to ask you then, from a belief perspective on this narrative angle, because you kept saying you've said believe too many times tonight.
Believe it.
RIFC, they're the lower seed coming into this game. We know this before. We've seen this. No one's going to forget last year's Eastern Conference final. I don't think anyone forgot it from the fact that the last time Charleston had played was against us, and they played against us again right away to start the season. Are RIFC playing with house money again? We've made the playoffs. We have nothing left in that regard. The regular season's done. We're a playoff contender. We're a playoff team. Do we get to play with a little bit of freedom here, or are we up against the wall to prove something that doesn't actually exist, and that's going to make this game different? Like, are we playing with fearlessness and freedom, or is there something on our shoulders? Is there a responsibility that's going to like mess with the mental well-being of this team? And then how does that affect the Charleston blueprint?
In regards to like, it's our second season. Like, I know expectations were high from fans, but I think we kind of tempered those off, and then we kind of, started a run late in season. So I think there's definitely a lot of belief from the fans that we can go out there and do something. But I think if it doesn't pan out, I think they'll look at the season as a whole and just say, okay, that tracks, as opposed to saying, no, this was a really good season. The expectations are high. We need to go out there and win and really get something done. I think so in that regards, maybe they do have a little bit of house money in that sense where, everyone is believing, but maybe is it asterisk tentatively, right? Like, we know we could do it last year. We've seen you guys do it this year, in like little spurts. So go out there and do it again, if you will. But if it doesn't happen, like, we'll just look back at the rest of the season and be like, well, I guess, yeah, that's just how it fizzled out.
It's like I said earlier, it's psyops at its best. If we do this again, we're going to be permanently under Charleston's scale. Like Louisville hates us. And every time I go in the Reddit, they hate two teams right now because everyone hates Charleston. Everyone hates Hartford, because of the Siaha antics.
Yeah.
And then but if you see any of the active Louisville members in the subs, they're all like, yeah, we hate two teams. We hate Hartford and RIFC. And like, I'll constantly, what did we do? What have we done to you this year? It was last year when you thought you were like, we beat you. We were allowed to brag about it. But I do feel like if we do this again to Charleston, I feel like we will not be welcome back in South Carolina for a long time to come. I have a joke that I wrote down for later, but I'm going to just hit it now. If we beat them again, I'm curious if they let us bring the drums in again for this second postseason, because we snuck.
I don't know if any of them are going. I think it's not as big of a contingent because it is the first match. I saw online there's a decent amount of fans going. I just don't think La Banda is going to make an appearance this time.
I hope all of the traveling Charleston fans, or traveling fans to Charleston, I should say, I hope they all bring wooden noisemakers, because after that got banned in the last one, I hope they find another way to make noise inside the stadium if they can't bring the drums in. But let's move on. Let's talk about the
clapping. Yeah. So another talking point here: possession mismatch. In that August 30th meeting between RFC and Charleston, RFC dominated the result despite being dominating possession. We've talked about this in regards to that's maybe not always the path for us to win is dominating possession. If they stay organized, they don't necessarily need to win the ball, but rather it's like, what do you do with the ball when you have it? And that,
you got to be clinical. But here's the thing: is like, we have seen this team thrive without the ball at their feet.
Absolutely.
Kano refuses to subscribe to this, despite the evidence against this specific team. The possession number was like less than 32. or less than 33% of possession at times against Charleston with just 4 shots, and we converted on 2 of them in terms of shots on target, and then we converted on 1 of them in terms of goal. Like we look at this, and like, while that is not the type of football I always want to see, because it gets just too like, oh, like here we go.
It could be frustrating,
but that's the blueprint for this team. I don't think this team is a build from the back. I don't think this team is a build from a slow possession and intentful possession. I think this team is a explosive transition team, right place, right time, make a decisive run, get a clinical finish, and you're off to the races. I don't see this team being the type that's going to paint a beautiful picture with, a Crayola crayon box and being able to say, like, this is masterclass soccer. Like, it's just not our game style. If Kano starts playing out the back and wants to build with possession, we are going to expose ourselves to again, I'm going to go back to Husu as a disruptor. He's going to get the ball from us in an interception or in a recovery, and then we will be out of sorts, just like we kind of saw against New Mexico United. We will get punished for it. We just all need to be collectively okay that we don't have more than 40%, 42% possession in this match, maybe less if that's even possible, and just go with it. We that's just who we are. That's in our DNA. Or do you disagree with that?
No, I think that's who this team is shown to be. I think when we see too much possession, there's been maybe a few games where it went our way, but I think if you look at the larger sample size, most of the time it doesn't work in our favor.
Almost never does. You're right. So, Jason, let's talk about how RIFC wins this game. I've got down set piece, set piece, set piece. It's so nice. I wrote it 3 times. I wrote it thrice. We know that JJ Williams will be back for this game. We know he's an aerial duelist. But on the defensive side of things for Charleston, and something that they were missing last year, Leland Archer, you talk about stats, these 2 players very similar despite completely different roles on the pitch when it comes to their duel percentages and their win percentages. On top of Archer, then you've also got Cal Jennings, who got 2 past us in set piece tactics in that first game of the season. You can't isolate Jennings in the regular play because Myers is just as deadly. This is not a Markanich situation. So the first and foremost, defensive rule 101 right now, lock it down for set pieces. This can't happen the same way it did for that first game of the season. How do you fix that?
Yeah, I think it's going to come down a lot to those individual duels and who's going to make a mistake. I think this is going to be a tough, scrappy game. All of these guys, like you said earlier, we have a bunch of tall, strong dudes. So at some point, I think that while Charleston has, we could argue that better service. I mean,
I think they do.
We have the physicality in the sense of like those bruisers who at some point they have to win a header, right? Or 2 to kind of like we're owed another corner goal, if you will. I think at this point, why not continue that trend?
That would be fun to see us get like a long range set piece goal, like what Rodriguez did to us last year. I wouldn't mind taking that.
Yeah. And then like clinicality is going to be important here too. We've struggled with goal prediction throughout the season. So I think that we're just going to need to kind of really tighten that up at this point. And we have to a certain extent seen that. So I think that just needs to continue. Less possession in that sense, really go after those second balls, try and really make those decisive attacks. So
I agree with that. And then speaking of those attacks, getting that finishing in there, we talked about where do these goals come from a second ago. How, when we think about that, we're one of only 2 Eastern Conference teams right now that average less than a goal per game. We've talked about it at length that this isn't a strong performance, but RIFC need to abandon the possession, like you said, with these decisive fuels of runs. But where's the truth behind this?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, RFC is one of 2 teams in July to keep Charleston off the score sheet. So I mean that's definitely something to be proud of. Defense wins championships. We're one of the stronger defenses, and I think that needs to be on full display. But I don't know if I can really see us keeping all of their attacking threats kind of out of the net. But I mean that's kind of what's going to be needed. They're really going to need to exploit transitions here. Like we said, that is kind of our bread and butter when we really are that effective. So it's going to be really important.
I noticed an interesting stat. Charleston has the highest scoring attack in the first half of each half this season. 11 goals in the first 15 minutes of the first half, 12 in the first 15 of the second half in the regular season. You know, we've talked at length, RIFC is a second half team. It's never going to be more apparent than right now. You said it earlier, defense wins championships, and it's going to come down to, can we hold on? I don't know if we keep Charleston out of the back of the net. I just don't see it happening. Do you see us keeping it clean against Charleston?
No, I think if we pull off this, it's another 2-1. Like almost exactly indicative of the two kind of matches that we got. So, you know.
Speaking of that, though, when we talk about goals, these games have been kind of grinds at times. 2.5 goals apparently is the estimate here. Both of these teams in head-to-head, it's 0.8 goals per team when we've seen each other in the past. Lots of nil-nils in there that have plagued this. So it's been a situation where we've not always seen high production rates. In fact, I think now that we think about it, the Eastern Conference final was probably the highest goal production at a 2-1 in the entirety of all of these head-to-head campaigns. So I do see it as something that will come down to the wire, but I think they get it done. You know, the fans say online it's going to be a 50-50. 47% think Charleston will win. 47% think Rhode Island FC will win. 6% are the sickos that want it to be a draw. And you know we cannot, for the love of God, go to penalties with this match.
That's absolutely not where we want this to go.
Yeah, agreed 100%. So, hey, listen, this has been a fun time. I cannot wait for the playoff soccer this weekend with the action kicking off at 2 p.m. at Patriots Point. Like you said, lots of fans will be traveling down. It'll be great to see how they get in there. Hopefully they figure out their music situation, whether it's drums or wooden noisemakers. The Guild is going to be popping off with both the Defiance and Rhode Island FC official watch parties. I know that the German American Culture Society will also be popping off with Robin Front in Pawtucket as well. If you're not going to one of those parties, you can watch all the action on CBS Sports Network. You can follow along on 790 The Score or Sirius XM channel F1 or at 157. And so that should be exciting all the same. Jason, what's the final word and how do we see this happen with the playoffs this year?
You know it is. It's believe.
I regret asking you that question. Oh, and Tim also writes in, don't forget to bring food for the food drive at the Guild. They've been crushing it with their monetary contributions for food goal donations. So bring food. Tim, if you can post a link for where they can find out more, because I don't know the charity that you guys are partnered with. But if you are coming to the Guild, bring food or bring money, bring your wallets. And if I catch you buying beer and not donating to give food to a good cause, we'll guilt trip you a lot on a public setting. So listen, it's been super exciting. We're here in the playoffs. It's time. Believe anchors up. You got it. What's the other final word? Don't end with believe. We can't end with believe.
All right, everyone. Make sure to check out our friends over at the Blazing Musket for all of your New England soccer coverage. And that's including RFC at theblazingmusket.com. You can follow us on Twitter, Threads, TikTok, and Blue Sky at RAFC Podcast. We have an Instagram at Raising Anchor. And we got that website, raisinganchorpodcast.com.